600 a.m. I stepped outside with coffee expecting birdsong. Instead, I got a chainsaw. 3 men were cutting into my backyard fence, and there she was, Victoria. Robe, slippers, smirk, shouting like she owned the block. A giant metal gate was being unloaded onto my lawn. No warning, no permission, just slice, drill, destroy. I asked, "What the hell are you doing?" She smiled. "Fixing this eyesore, you're welcome." That's when I knew this wasn't a mistake. It was a takeover, and it was just the beginning. You're not going to believe what she did next. Victoria wasn't just a neighbor. She was a self-declared queen of our HOA, the kind of woman who treated bylaws like scripture and wielded them like weapons. Her lawn looked like a magazine cover. Her mouth moved like a courtroom drama. At every community meeting, she had suggestions banning certain garden gnomes measuring grass with a ruler proposing curfews for Halloween decorations. Everyone rolled their eyes behind her back but smiled to her face. But this, tearing through my fence at dawn, this was war. And the worst part, she didn't even flinch when I stepped out. She turned, cocked her head, and with the smirk of someone who knew exactly what she was doing, said, "Oh, good morning. Just doing a little improvement for the greater good." Looking back, the warning signs were there. Just days before the fence incident, I caught Victoria pacing near our property line, measuring tape in one hand, a can of spray paint in the other. She drew a chalk-straight white line across my lawn right up to the fence. When I stepped outside to ask what she was doing, she didn't even pretend to hide it. She turned, grinning like a politician caught red-handed, and said, loud enough for the entire street to hear, "Oh, just verifying the boundary. Wouldn't want any confusion when we make a few community upgrades. You'll be pleasantly surprised." It wasn't a question. It was a statement, a warning. And I didn't realize then I was already in her blueprint. A few weeks before the fence fiasco, we had a regular HOA meeting at the clubhouse. That's when Victoria first floated her so-called community walkway initiative. She stood there clipboard in hand, smile too wide, pitching a plan to connect our homes more efficiently by repurposing private yards into shared walkways. The room went dead silent. Someone coughed. A few chuckled awkwardly. The board politely shut it down. Victoria didn't flinch. She just turned slowly to look at me, her smile hardening her voice. Now sugar-laced venom, some people cling to their fences like lifelines. But even the most stubborn problems have solutions. Her eyes locked onto mine. And in that moment, it didn't feel like a failed proposal. It felt like a declaration. I should have seen it coming. But when narcissism wraps itself in HOA policy, it's easy to miss the bomb ticking. I was out back pulling weeds, sweat on my brow gloves, caked in dirt, when I heard the click of heels on pavement. Victoria. She paused at the edge of my yard, eyes locked on the fence like it was an obstacle she meant to erase. Then came that smirk, that slow, superior smile like she knew something I didn't. She said, loud and clear, "These old fences. So outdated, don't you think? What we need is a more open flow, for everyone." She let the silence hang, then added with a hint of warning, "Sometimes things need to change, even if some people are a little rigid." She didn't wait for a response, just turned and walked off humming to herself. And just like that, my backyard no longer felt like mine. It felt surveilled, pre-selected. Next. At 600 a.m., a power saw shrieked through the air. I stumbled outside in pajamas and froze. 3 men were slicing through my side fence. And there stood Victoria, arms folded, leopard robe billowing, shouting like a deranged HOA general. "Oh, look, Sleeping Beauty's awake. Thought you could hide behind that ugly fence forever." She jabbed toward my yard. "This trash has been lowering property value for years. I'm fixing what you're too lazy to handle." Neighbors peeked out from blinds. This wasn't subtle. This was war, and she had just gone loud. By 800 a.m., the gate was up, gleaming smug and illegal. At 8:15, Victoria strutted through it like royalty leash in hand. Her poodle pranced onto my lawn and pooped right in my garden. I stepped forward. She just smirked. "He must like your soil. Some dogs sense new territory, like their owners." Then with a heel twist, she crushed my zinnias. They needed trimming. This wasn't an accident. It was a message. One brick at a time, she was rewriting the boundary. The sun was soft that morning, casting gold across my freshly watered lawn. Bees buzzed near the lavender bed. Rocky dozed beside a stone frog statue. Then she arrived breaking the peace like a crow in a cathedral. "Victoria, this is private property. You can't just build a gate and act like it's yours." She didn't even look up. "Technically, it's shared access. Read the clause page 12. That clause is for emergency utility, not joy walks." She waved me off. "Details. The board voted. You missed the meeting. I was out of town." She smiled, syrupy and smug. "Exactly." Then whistled for her dog, like I was background noise in her expansion plans. I tried to stay calm. I asked her again to stop using the gate until the HOA could clarify. That's when Victoria put on a show. She gasped, staggered backward like I'd physically shoved her. Eyes wide, hand to chest, voice trembling. "Oh my God, are you threatening me now because I care about the neighborhood?" Her poodle yipped. She scooped it up like a shield. A few neighbors across the street had come out, coffee cups in hand, frowning confused. Victoria's voice cracked, perfectly staged. "He's trying to intimidate me, just for wanting a safer walkway for our community." I stood there stunned. She wasn't breaking rules, she was performing righteousness, and in HOA land, that's more dangerous than any law. I knew then this wasn't just a bad neighbor. This was a hostile occupation wrapped in HOA buzzwords. So I called Luis, my old college buddy turned municipal attorney, told him everything, sent photos of the gate, screenshots, video, even audio clips of Victoria's community improvements. 5 minutes later, he called back laughing. "Dude, this is gold." Trespassing, unpermitted modification, misuse of HOA authority. You're sitting on a lawsuit buffet. I asked, "Can I tear down the gate?" He replied, "Not yet. Don't touch it. Document everything. Record every interaction. We'll file cease and desist soon. But, legally, you're holding all the cards." I looked out the window. Victoria was strolling back through the gate like it was hers. She thought she'd won. She had no idea the clock had just started ticking. That same afternoon, I went full recon mode. I installed 2 extra security cameras, one pointed straight at the new gate, the other covering my garden from above. Motion activated. Audio ready. Then I set up my phone to start recording any time I walked outside. If Victoria wanted to keep performing, I'd record the whole damn play. It didn't take long. She passed through the gate again around 3 p.m., acting like it was a public trail. This time she brought 2 HOA ladies with her walking side by side sipping smoothies. One of them stepped on my hydrangeas. Another complimented my lawn like they were touring a model home. And Victoria. She waved her hand toward the yard and said, "Isn't this shortcut lovely?" Much faster than walking around the block. Click, captured, documented, game on. That night, Luis stopped by with printouts, property maps, local zoning codes, and a bottle of scotch. We went over everything on my porch while Rocky dozed at our feet. I vented, he listened. Then, almost as a throwaway, he said, "Technically, you could build a wall on your side. If it's under 8 feet and on private property, they can't touch it." I laughed. "A wall?" He grinned. "A legal, beautifully spiteful wall. Nothing says do not enter like bricks and mortar." I laughed harder at first, but after he left, the idea kept echoing in my head. Not just any wall, a monument, a boundary, a message. I poured another drink and pulled up the city code. Victoria had made her move. Now it was my turn. By sunrise, I had a full plan. I contacted a local supplier. Luis recommended weather-sealed red bricks enough to cover a 10-foot section 8 feet high. When the rep asked when I wanted them delivered, I said, "Tonight." Then I called a crew that specialized in overnight commercial construction. Discreet fast, no questions asked. I used an alias, told them it was a surprise anniversary gift for my wife, something decorative but bold. They were skeptical until I offered a hefty bonus for one-night turnaround. They agreed. Then I grabbed chalk and began marking the layout on my side of the fence, pretending to garden. Rocky watched me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. But this wasn't revenge. This was reclamation brick by brick. Victoria had invaded. Now I was building her exit. At 10:50 p.m., 2 trucks rolled in headlights off engines quiet. 4 men stepped out, gloves on hoods up. Silent. Focused. They followed me to the backyard. I showed them the chalk lines. 8 feet high. Brick. Iron top. Must be done by sunrise. They nodded. By 11:15, the cursed gate was gone. Dismantled, erased. The ground leveled. Mortar mixed. Bricks stacked. But I couldn't relax. My eyes darted to the street, the windows, the shadows. Would someone report us? Would Victoria appear shrieking in the dark? Each brick felt like a beat of my pulse. This wasn't just construction, it was countdown. Midnight. The street was still. But my backyard glowed under floodlights like a hidden battlefield. The crew worked in rhythm trowel, brick tap. No words, no breaks. Mortar hissed, steel clinked. Time stretched thin. I brought coffee. Derek, the mason, raised an eyebrow. Most build walls to keep people out. This one feels earned. She broke something. "This is me putting it back together," he nodded. "Then we'll make it bulletproof." By 2 a.m., the wall was waist-high. Rocky shifted ears, twitching eyes on every sound. Like he knew we were doing something important. And I couldn't stop pacing. Every brick wasn't just protection, it was a prayer. Please finish before she wakes. By 3:30 a.m., the wall stood tall 7 feet and climbing each layer more satisfying than the last. It wasn't just functional. It was art. I'd requested an iron trellis arch at the top wrapped in pre-hung vines to make it feel less like a fortress, more like a declaration dressed in civility. Derek finished the capstones, then handed me a small brass plaque. Laser etched. Clean. Perfect. Private property. Do not enter. I mounted it dead center just above eye level. Under the floodlight it gleamed like a badge of honor. By 4:30, it was done. 8 feet high. Flawless. We stood in silence, just admiring it. The crew packed up like ghosts, disappearing before dawn. I took one last look, then whispered to myself, "Let her try to walk through that." At 7:15 a.m., sharp, just like clockwork, Victoria appeared at the trail's bend leash in hand, coffee in the other humming some smug little tune. Then she saw it. Her footsteps halted. Her mouth opened, not a word came out. Where her precious shortcut once stood now rose a towering red brick monument, crowned with an iron trellis and a golden plaque that practically shouted, "Private property." "Do not enter." Her poodle barked once. She didn't blink. I stepped out onto my porch, still holding my coffee, calm as ever. "Morning, Victoria. Lovely day for a walk." She blinked hard like reality had just betrayed her. Then, jaw clenched, she stormed toward the wall, stopping inches from it like she could glare a hole through stone. But stone doesn't flinch, and neither did I. Victoria stormed up to the wall like it had personally insulted her lineage. She pointed a shaking finger at it and shouted, "You can't do this. This is illegal. I'll have the HOA fine you into oblivion." I walked calmly to the edge of my lawn and gestured to the laminated property map taped neatly to the wall, city stamped, signed, sealed. 8 feet tall. Decorative. On my land. Zoning code compliant. Louise helped me file everything. She sputtered. Literally sputtered. "You'll hear from the board. You'll regret this." I sipped my coffee. "Funny. I didn't hear a word from them when you cut down my fence. Interesting how that works?" She stood frozen red-faced as her poodle barked hysterically. She'd pushed for a fight. Now she was staring at a boundary she couldn't bulldoze. By noon, I opened my mailbox to find not one, not two, but 3 urgent violation notices from the HOA. Excessive vegetation along eastern fence line, unauthorized permanent structure visible from shared pathways, and my personal favorite, seasonally inappropriate yard ornament. A Halloween gnome from last October still hiding behind a bush. Each envelope was signed and time-stamped, clearly fast-tracked, clearly weaponized. I chuckled, walked inside and scanned every page. Then I forwarded them all to Luis. His reply came within minutes. "This is textbook retaliation. We'll hit her with harassment, trespassing, and abuse of authority. Time to flip the script." I looked out at my wall. Victoria had turned HOA rules into a sword. She just forgot I had the shield. That afternoon, I turned my living room into a war room. I printed everything, photos of the gate installation, time-stamped videos, HOA letters, screenshots of texts where Victoria practically bragged about her shortcut to progress. I clipped footage from my security cameras. Victoria leading HOA ladies through my yard like it was a guided tour. One of them stepping on my hydrangeas while laughing. I created a folder, labeled it Evidence. Victoria versus Sanity. Then I sat back and looked at the sheer volume of violations, lies, and manipulation laid out before me. This wasn't a petty feud anymore. This was a paper trail of power abuse, clear cold and bulletproof. And the best part, Victoria didn't know what was coming, but the neighborhood. They were about to find out. I wasn't just going to fight her in silence anymore. So I edited the clearest clip, Victoria trying to pry off a decorative cap from the wall, nearly tripping when her bracelet caught on the vines. Then I uploaded it to Reddit. Title: Karen tried to dismantle my backyard wall, didn't know I had cameras. Tag r/r EntitledPeople. Within hours, it exploded. Thousands of upvotes. Comments like Queen of Audacity. Wall 1, HOA Tyrants, 0. I'd pay to shake your hand. People shared their own HOA horror stories. Memes started popping up. Someone dubbed her Brickbreaker Victoria. Suddenly, I wasn't the only one in this fight. Now the internet was watching, and Victoria she'd wanted attention. Now she had it with a capital wall. 2 days after the Reddit post blew up, I got a DM from a local reporter. She'd seen the footage, she'd seen the comments. She was working on a feature about HOA harassment and asked if she could use the clip anonymous location blurred. I agreed. The segment aired the following night when neighbors go too far. A brick wall between sanity and control. The video played in slow motion, Victoria yanking at the wall, stumbling, scowling. They blurred her face, but everyone in the neighborhood recognized that outfit, that dog, that attitude. My phone buzzed all night. Neighbors sent screenshots. One simply wrote, "She's on TV, you legend." Victoria wanted to dominate the neighborhood. Now the neighborhood was watching her implode on cable. 3 days later, the HOA called an emergency meeting. Victoria showed up late, tight-lipped, sunglasses indoors, jaw locked like a vice. She sat up front with her clipboard posture tense but trembling. I arrived 5 minutes later, calm, clean-shaven, holding a binder thicker than the HOA handbook. Luis was right behind me, briefcase in hand, professional and quietly lethal. Victoria tried to regain control, launching into a speech about unauthorized structures and neighbor aggression. Her voice cracked halfway through. When she finished, I stood, opened the binder, and calmly began, "Let's go over the timeline. Clip by clip, photo by photo, citation by citation. Every lie, overreach, and trespass lined up like dominoes waiting to fall." By the time I played the security video of her fake fainting spell, the room was dead silent. And Victoria. She was cracking. When the final clip ended, Victoria leading a shortcut tour through my backyard laughing like it was hers, the silence snapped. Then a neighbor stood. Then another. One by one they spoke. Greg. She tried to find me for having a flagpole. Too tall. Maria. She had my landscaper written up for trimming my hedge on my dime. Dave. She once told my kid to move his bike or she'd call the HOA board. Each voice was steady, each story worse than the last. Victoria shrank into her chair. Her clipboard, once her symbol of control, lay flat and useless on her lap. Luis rose. Calm, clear, final. This isn't about fences. This is about power, misused, abused, and now documented. The board didn't debate. The room had already decided. The HOA president cleared his throat, face unreadable, then looked at Victoria. Effective immediately. Your discretionary powers are suspended. You're barred from issuing citations or proposing motions. Access to HOA funds is frozen pending review. Victoria opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her skin flushed red, then pale. The president continued flat and firm. You're removed from all board meetings for 60 days. If further violations arise, the board will consider permanent expulsion. Gasps. Whispers. One slow clap that never caught on, but felt earned. Victoria stood up slowly, grabbed her clipboard, and left without a word the first time I'd ever seen her silent. The door shut behind her like a final gavel strike. I didn't smile. I just exhaled. For the first time in weeks, I could finally breathe. You'd think losing her throne would humble her, but no, Victoria doubled down. 3 days later, a white animal control truck pulled up to my driveway. The officer stepped out clipboard in hand, eyes apologetic. We got a report of unlicensed livestock on the property. Goats, possibly chickens, and a large aggressive dog. I blinked, then gestured to my backyard. Rocky wagged his tail like a dopey puppy, then flopped over. The only livestock present, 2 decorative concrete pigs by my garden bed. The officer laughed, took a few photos to close the file, and said, "Looks like someone's wasting our time." No need to ask who filed the complaint. Victoria wasn't just losing. She was unraveling one petty accusation at a time. Over the next few days, my front porch became a quiet parade of solidarity. Greg from next door dropped off a 6-pack with a note for the guy who built the wall, literally and metaphorically. Maria brought lemon bars. The vintage car guy across the street, just a firm nod, and took guts. Respect. Even people I barely knew started waving when they passed, lingering longer on sidewalks, less afraid, more alive. It wasn't just about the wall anymore. It was about someone finally standing up. I hadn't planned to lead anything. I just wanted peace. But apparently peace when defended echoes. Meanwhile, Victoria hadn't been seen in days. Her house sat quiet. No clipboard, no dog, no threats. And, for the first time, the neighborhood felt like it belonged to all of us. One morning, while trimming the vines that had already begun climbing the trellis, I noticed a silver sedan in Victoria's driveway. 2 people in business casual stepped out, clipboard briefcase forced smiles. Realtors. I kept pruning, pretending not to watch. But I saw everything. Victoria came out last. Shoulders hunched, sunglasses on even though it was overcast. No smile, no waves, just a tight, robotic gesture toward the house. 15 minutes later, the for sale sign was in the ground. News spread fast. Some neighbors whispered, others outright celebrated. One even posted a meme to the HOA board, a brick wall wearing sunglasses. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Victoria's silence was the loudest confession she'd ever made. And that red brick wall, still standing. Still undefeated. That weekend, I hosted a barbecue. Nothing fancy, just burgers, cold drinks, folding chairs, and neighbors who finally felt like friends. Greg brought potato salad. Maria showed up with wine. Even the guy with the vintage cars arrived blaring Motown from a Bluetooth speaker. Kids played tag in driveways without worrying about citations. At sunset, I set up a projector and played a slideshow I called The Wall Saga. Photos of the gate, the night crew building, Victoria's infamous bracelet incident. The crowd laughed, shook heads, toasted to boundaries literal and emotional. Someone joked, "Think you could build one around the HOA office?" Next, I smiled, sipped my drink, and looked at the wall. It had started as defense. Now it was a symbol, not just of privacy, but of people finally standing together. The vines have started blooming now, curling up the brick, softening its edges. From a distance, it doesn't even look like resistance anymore. It looks like peace. Sometimes, to protect your space and your dignity, you have to draw a line. Not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Bullies often count on silence. But one voice, firm and prepared, can ripple through an entire neighborhood. And when one person stands up, others remember they can too. So if you've ever felt pushed, cornered, dismissed, know this: boundaries are brave. Justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just stands there quiet, 8 feet tall, and unmovable. Thank you for watching this journey. If it resonated with you, feel free to like, subscribe, and share. We'll see you next time on the other side of the wall.